Good evening, everybody. The time is now 7 o'clock, and I would like to call the City of Twinsburg Caucus meeting for May 13th, 2025 to order. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
No, sorry. Mr. Bellin?
Here. I'm in here.
All right, awesome.
Screw me off. I was not expecting
Oh, Mr. Post? Mr. Bellin? Here. Mr. Barr? Here. Mr. Freary? Here. Mr. Bonacci? Here. Miss Labbe?
Here.
Miss Walker?
Present.
All right. That sounds so good.
Please let the record reflect that Mike, the intern, called the roll.
Yes, right. No, that's Shannon's had a rough voice right now. So, long weekend. All right. Any presentations for caucus?
There are none.
Okay, perfect. Any items for discussion?
When we get the legislation regarding the change on the CRA agreement, I'd like to make that an emergency and talking with the law director. We were going to just get that done. It was just changed in a year. So,
Okay. So you just want to just change it to an emergency?
yes. And I think that the president's notes are updated with an option. So if you choose to do it,
I
that's
didn't see that here.
that's the other page.
Okay.
Okay?
Can't hear you in the mic, though.
Sorry, let me get the number.
51.
51 is just an update to a CRA agreement.
Mhm.
And in talking with the law director earlier this evening, we both thought it was appropriate. We checked with Rebecca. We just make a recommendation to pass that on emergency and get off the agenda. So,
Yeah. If I could jump in at that point, Mr. Fury. So it's styled as an emergency already. We would just need to suspend the three reading rule tonight. And as Mr. Fury said, we both discussed it earlier tonight. And given that council has already passed the underlying CRA, Ms. Ziegler is here tonight to answer any questions you may have about that, but the only change is that it's being bumped back a year for the beginning of the CRA period. But like I said, we've already passed the CRA, so it seemed prudent to go ahead and get this one passed, so then we can move on to sending out an updated CRA. And finally, might as well just save time, Ms. Ziegler sent out the required notices for CRAs already, so we are able to act on it tonight to adopt legislation.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else? Do we want to discuss department heads reporting at council meetings? I
No.
know that's on the agenda here. So I didn't know if.
Nate, you want to talk now?
They're just here for legislation.
Okay. Rebecca, you're good?
we're good.
Okay, worth asking. Worth asking while we have time. Is there any audience participation?
There is. Jonah Pichette.
Wearing the suit.
Yes, sir. Hey, guys. Jonah Pichette, 11146 Heritage Drive. I'm here actually tonight on this part of the meeting to speak as a proponent in favor of Ordinance 53/2025, amending the parking regulations of the City of Twinsburg. I think this is a fantastic ordinance. I think it's a fantastic idea. And over the past couple of years, I've actually talked to a couple of council members about this. So I think this is a really near perfect approach to amending parking regulations in the city. It bans parking on the fire hydrant side of the street. It blocks, it allows the mayor to enact an emergency snow ban, and it additionally allows or prevents people from parking in designated no parking zones. The one thing I'm going to ask of council is to sort of adopt a belt and suspenders approach, to steal from Mr. Vizana. One thing that concerns me is the second whereas clause talks about the safety of our first responders and the necessity for this. I really think it should be spelled out that no parking should be allowed in cul-de-sacs. I talked with the mayor and he said that the no parking signs would be placed in all cul-de-sacs, but I think spelling that out in the ordinance, just saying no parking in cul-de-sacs would be ideal. I remember a neighbor of mine in her cul-de-sac, she was moving out, had a U-Haul trailer in there temporarily, a UPS truck was also in the cul-de-sac, and the postman quite literally couldn't get through our cul-de-sac with an island. And so to me, I worry if somebody's having a party and maybe the sign happens to get knocked down, you're now in a predicament where you're delaying emergency response vehicles if somebody should need it by minutes, if not seconds. And I don't ever want to be in that situation. And so I just believe a belt and suspenders approach might be ideal. And so, great resolution, or great ordinance, definitely in favor. Just that one amendment I'd encourage. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That's all we have.
Which brings us to pending legislation. Ordinance 47, 2025. This ordinance is to implement the proposed sewer rate charges by amending section 911 of the code. The city has done a sewer rate study with the results recommending increases to fund the needed repairs and increasing maintenance and operating costs of the department. The new rates will include a 4% increase starting July 1st, 2025, and then annually on January 1st through 2030. We are being asked to suspend the 3 reading rule and pass this on an emergency after the 3rd reading, so the effective date is before the July 1st billing cycle. Any questions, comments?
Nope.
Nate, do you want to say anything? No need, I just want to know if you wanted to say anything.
I mean, the chart really spells everything
I
out,
thought you were about
and
to do that.
we've discussed it already, so, I mean, I have no questions.
Okay, great, thank you. I would love to change those numbers to make them nice and even, but.
I did try.
Did you?
Yes.
They were?
Didn't work out very well.
All right, ordinance 48, 2025. This ordinance is for a language update to the code for chapter 913. In November 2023, the residents voted for charter changes, which included the Division of Public Works Department into 2 separate departments, one being the wastewater department and the other being the service department. This ordinance will allow the title of Public Works Director to be changed to Director of Wastewater Treatment to match the charter. The only thing being changed in this chapter is the title change. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Would it be wastewater treatment director or director of wastewater treatment?
Throughout the document, it
Yes.
said Director of
Director of
Wastewater
wastewater
Treatment.
treatment, okay.
Right, you look like you're about to stand up again. Did you wanna? Did you wanna?
That's good.
Right, okay.
171 changes.
Thinking about it.
Not sure there's a difference which way you do it.
Right.
They'll still pay you.
Right. All right, any other comments or questions? Nope. All right, ordinance 49, 2025. This ordinance is for council's consideration to rezone parcel 64-00096 at the 9392 Ravenna Road. This is at the request of the property owner. This property is being asked to be changed from C2 Community Commercial District to I1 Intensive Commercial and Light Industrial Zone Use. The Planning Commission heard this case and approved the rezoning at their May 21st meeting. There will be a public hearing on June 10th at 6:45. This will be on its first reading tonight. Questions or concerns?
I think this is a great rezoning, and I think we ought to thank the owner of this property who has already demolished one of the dilapidated motel,
Yeah, there's the old blue top.
the blue top, and has taken ownership on the one on the other side with the same plan. And I think that the I-2 fit for the storage units is perfect for that area, and it'll be an upgrade. I appreciate investing the money in Twinsburg, in my opinion.
The only question I had, I will certainly support putting this on the ballot, 100%. The only question, I guess, is probably a question for Ms. Ziegler, and I apologize, I didn't have a chance to call you today. Is there any concern with, so right now it's C2, I believe both adjacent properties on either side are still C2. Is there any issue with going C2, the rezoned, and then C2 back on the other side? Okay, that's.
Yeah, the one adjacent property is, I believe, Compass, correct?
Right, which is owned by the same
Which is
gentleman.
owned by the same fellow, Compass
Right.
Computer Group. And then the other property is a car repair.
Yeah, it's,
No, the other side of him is the Twinsburg. You're talking on the other side of the blue top?
Yeah, isn't that? the
Oh, yes,
automotive
yeah. I
repair
thought you were
shop?
talking
Crash
on the other
champions,
side of
right?
Compass.
It's, yeah, although it is a C2 zone, if you look at the aerials, it's, yeah, this will be an improvement
Okay.
to mark just a few.
yeah, okay, that's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Trying to clarify for you.
Great comments. Great comments. Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments? All right, ordinance 50, 2025. This ordinance is to amend chapter 195 regarding the Twinsburg occupancy program. This program was established in 2004 and has not been updated in recent years. This ordinance will redefine the purpose, establish revised eligibility, update the schedule of grant benefit, the application process, and the reporting and fee amounts. Ms. Ziegler, do you want to comment and give us some thoughts on this? No need, it's just, does anybody have any questions for her or comments? Yeah, give us a little spiel.
This is our Twinsburg occupancy program, our like jobs creation grant is what it's commonly known. Very, very, very popular program here in Northeast Ohio. We just haven't updated it in 20 years. So it's time to, it started with the fee scheduling, just updating it with current inflation rates. And then all of the comments or all of the revisions that were suggested here are in keeping with our neighbors, Solon, Beechwood, Hudson. It's just kind of maintaining status quo with them, trying to still be competitive as a community of choice for these types of employers. So it was time. It was just time for an update, and that's what that's about, though. If there's any specific questions on the dollar amounts or anything else, it's pretty straightforward, though. The red lines.
I think you just averaged like 40,000 employee. Is that how you did that? Am I thinking of the right thing?
With the math?
Yeah, is that how you calculated the salaries? Is that what you did?
The salary amounts?
Yeah.
You mean for the grant amount? This is just a baseline, kind of a guideline criteria, but it really depends on the employer coming in. If it's an employer of choice, what we would call someone that we've really been trying to recruit, that might weigh a little bit heavier. Are they already receiving another incentive? Are they planning on growing? There's a variety of factors, but this is kind of just a guideline, but we can kind of go off of this a little bit. It keeps our margins a little bit broader to still be competitive, because there is a potential to lose out on some of these to other communities, but we don't want to, give away the cow with the farm per se as well. So
Have we lost other businesses that you know of to other communities for an agreement like this? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I try to have like an exit interview for some of these communities, and if we have, of the ones that have verbalized to me, it would simply be due to our infrastructure. It's the types of buildings that we have. They either are not the right size or just didn't fit. They didn't have enough loading docks, access to rail. The cost to install a rail spur was too extensive. It wasn't due to an incentive, and most likely it's not due to this type of incentive. They're not large enough. The CRA is a bit more robust. So.
I appreciate that. Thanks for all that insight.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you. Resolution 51, 2025. This resolution is to amend the CRA agreement with Craft Pack to change the start date to begin in 2026 instead of 2025 due to construction delays. The terms remain the same at 3 years and a 25% tax exemption. Does anybody have any concerns with placing this on emergency investment this evening?
Basically just pushes the date back because they didn't get the building built. They wouldn't have got any benefit in the previous year from the reporting. And the whole goal is to incentivize them to build that building and, so that they can have the employees to get the incentive done.
All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll make the motion and see how it goes. Sounds like it's going to do just glorious. All right, perfect. Ordinance 52, 2025. This ordinance is to discontinue the annual funding to the CIC. Mr. Zana, if you would, can you just give us a little summary of what and why and how?
Got it. So, ordinance 153-2013 that was passed by this council created a funding source for the Twinsburg Community Improvement Corporation, and that funding source was 50% of the annual transient guest tax that was received by the city. That funding, if you go back and take a look at 153.13, was conditioned or seemed to be, at least from the legislative history and recognition of the fact that the Community Improvement Corporation was tasked in that same piece of legislation with performing two functions. One was the annual monitoring of the community reinvestment Act agreements, and 2, it was the monitoring of the top agreements, which you might remember we just talked about the top program. This ordinance here that is before you would repeal sections 1 and 2 of 153-2013, which would do 2 things. One, it would stop the obligation for the Community Improvement Corporation to monitor those 2 economic development incentives, and similarly or connected to that, it would stop the disbursement annually of the 50% of the transient accommodations tax in the city.
But they would still get the bed tax.
No,
No, that is,
They would get any.
transient tax is the bed tax.
yeah, that
Well,
is the bed tax.
Well, I thought you said that we match 50%, is that correct?
No.
Is that what
No.
I thought I read? I thought it said
No,
we
we,
get 50% of whatever we collect. Got
Correct,
it, okay,
yeah.
thank
So
you. I misread that
153,
thing.
yeah, it
So whatever we
creates-
collect of the bed tax, they get 50%.
yeah, they got 50% annually since 2013 when that passed. And that was, like I said, it seems to be that payment was made in recognition of the CIC having the duty to review annually the CRAs and the top agreements. At this point, this legislation right here would repeal sections 1 and 2 of that previous ordinance, which would make it to where the CIC doesn't have to do that annual monitoring, because frankly, we have a framework in place. We have our TURP, and we have housing councils that we have state law framework for those councils to meet and review these economic development incentives. So what's proposed before you would be to discontinue that annual payment to the CIC and also discontinue any obligation they may have as an outgrowth of that 153-2013 to be involved in our economic development reviews.
So, I know that one of the, again, you've been on the CIC, maybe you guys can answer this better than I can. I know that the CIC in the past has purchased land, and they've done those.
They have, we go, I believe, 3 parcels today.
Correct. I guess the question is the goal of the CIC to not have anything to do with that in the future with buying?
I believe that's the goal. I think
That's
we're
the goal.
switching, we're,
That is the goal.
Yeah.
That is
I
the goal,
mean-
because if there's no money, there's no buying land or anything, so do we want
we're working on a grant program for the downtown development, but we're changing the focus. Instead of acquiring, I think that as we've looked at it, we might not need the vehicle of a CIC to do the purchases of land to incorporate the downtown development that we've looked at, which was the primary reason that we put it together 15 years ago, a dozen years ago. So I would expect, we've already talked about consolidating some of the property that's by the post office with the old school property, and we could easily turn over the properties that we own on 82 to the city. The benefit would be that right now we pay an outside company to maintain them, and if the city owned them, the city could maintain them as part of our service department, as well as we just don't see the need or the why we wouldn't have the city be. Mayor, I'm not trying to speak for you. I'm just giving what I
No,
what I'm
we're changing the CIC's focus on what they do and what they're going to be working on.
Can I ask-
And so that, this is all part of that.
yeah.
All right,
And if
no,
I,
I think that's great, that if there's not a need, that there's no reason for it.
well, I also wanted to note something I think is important that's directly relevant to what you're talking about, Mr. Post. That, and I don't have the exact numbers, but the CIC currently does have a
Like 400
decent amount of funds on hand.
About $450,000, and if the CIC was running a grant program, the city could still transfer money from the general fund that came through the bed tax to support that program.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and as Mr. Fury and the mayor are talking about that, I would say, and again, we're obviously not the CIC, but there's an exploration right now about a shifting of the focus of the CIC and its interests. At least that's what we're hearing back. And their interests aren't land assemblage or development of properties. They're interested in exploring some type of a grant program that they can do with the monies they currently have on hand, and they don't need a continual cash flow coupled with an annual obligation where they have to meet review agreements and so forth. And, you know, it's at least the administration's position that this legislation before you is consistent with, you know, the city's support of that, you know, change in the future of the CIC.
So then the future monies that we used to give the CIC will stay in our general fund, correct? And then and that money is probably dog-eared for specific projects as well, if I remember correctly, right?
I think 50% of the bed tax has to be put towards economic development or promotion of the city. So there's lots of ways that we could legally utilize those funds.
Gotcha. I'm just trying to learn everything well, you know?
That's not correct?
No, it is. It's economic development and tourism. Which,
Okay, what did I say?
no, it,
promotion. I
there's
said promotion.
it's a generic term that's
Yeah.
put in there, and I don't know how
Okay,
much
so I said-
tourism.
I said promotion,
really-
it's tourism.
Not yet.
There's-
It's coming.
Twins Days.
Wednesdays, it's coming. I mean, again, I'm just asking these questions just so I can learn.
Just so we're clear,
Okay.
this was, Rebecca and I had sat down and discussed this. So these were our goals for the CIC. They didn't approach us, we approached them, okay, to make this change because it was a necessary change. 13 years that it's been in existence, and I've sat on that board for most of that 13 years, and I know Bill's done the same. So it was time because it wasn't, we didn't feel it was necessary any longer. Rebecca and I, again, had long conversations about it, so we approached the CIC, and that's why we're making these changes.
No, I mean, it all sounds good. I'm just trying to learn a little more. Did you want? Okay.
Throw it in.
One other item I did want to just bring up, because the CIC has been in formation for the last 13 years, is our goal is that hopefully this grant program is so successful and we're going through funds so quickly. The intention would be that the CIC group would come and present to you all annually, and if they are going to be requesting funds for the said grant program, they would just need to give you an update, just being more transparent with what the CIC's goals are, with what council is providing as well. So it doesn't mean that there isn't the possibility to potentially give some money back if you're seeing the work that the CIC is doing is valuable, but kind of, you know, wanting to earn that a little bit. So that was the main intention.
No, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all your comments so that I can understand a little bit better. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, and any other comments on that? No? All right, 53, 2025. This ordinance is to amend Chapter 351 regarding parking regulations. This includes updates to overnight parking, emergency snow ban parking, and no parking on fire hydrant side of street. Does anyone want to add anything? Comments, concerns? Mr. Zander, you want to say anything? Not that you need to, just, you don't have to.
I think Jonah did pretty well at explaining what was in there. We can take a look at the cul-de-sac provisions, from a clarity standpoint, as Jonah pointed out. It's not, up for adoption tonight, but yeah, there's three areas that are being proposed, as you heard. So snow ban, hydrant side parking ban, and then an overnight parking ban in residential districts. So happy and excited the administration's happy and excited to discuss this initiative with council over the next few meetings.
Sure.
The only thing I had said is I would have been in a heap of trouble. I always had cars in park, like a lot of cars parked, when my children were home.
Well, you're the reason.
But no, does anyone have any comments on that? Or?
We had you in mind when we did this.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I know that.
Karen ordinance.
Yeah, I know
Levy
that.
law, like the state.
I mean, I know that we can, if we're having a party or those
Yes.
kind of things, we can call the police department and let them know. I was driving through just the other day. I was driving through Corbett's Farm, and there was a large party going on, which was during the day, which is fine. But there were cars parked on both sides of the street, and and I was having a hard time just with my truck getting through. There's no way that an ambulance or a fire, could get through. Also, as a resident of a cul-de-sac, I would agree with Jonah what you said. Mr. Vizanda, could we see some language around, and maybe not all cul-de-sacs, but cul-de-sacs with that center island? I think if, there's a lot of cul-de-sacs in Twinsburg that don't have anything in the middle, I don't think that's as much of an issue, but.
Just so you know, we did talk about that prior to
Okay.
this coming to
Okay.
council, about putting some specific language. And everybody around the table felt that, if you read the whole thing, it says wherever there's no parking signs,
Okay.
there's no parking, okay? And so the thought was that we were gonna put those no parking signs, of course, in
Coming
all
into the cul-de-sacs.
Right.
Fair enough. Okay.
This way, but if council wants to have the language in there, that's up to council. But we didn't think it was necessary. Oh, whatever you know. What you
Because
guys-
you're
There's
saying
no
because the
parking,
signs
no
will already be
parking.
there.
The signs are gonna be there.
Right, yeah.
They will be there.
I forgot to check, but I think they're on both sides of our street. No parking on this side of the street. I think the signs are on both sides.
It's like there's no parking anywhere in Twinsburg right now, right?
Right now,
Right now, you
that's
can't
what it
park
says, but
anywhere on the street.
that's why we're modifying it.
Right. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, if I may add, Mr. Mayor, I mean, it's kind of opening up more parking, at least arguably, because so much of the city is signed no parking.
So,
And this opens up the residential on-street parking, but obviously with the safety-based caveats that hydrant sides of the street and, snow ban parking situations would be in place to, make sure that we have baseline protections for the motoring public and the residents.
well, what if, just thinking out loud, I agree with, I love how you're gonna do all those signs. I think that's great. I love that no parking on the side of the street. What about when it's in the cul-de-sac, if instead of saying no parking on the side of the street, what if the sign said no parking in the cul-de-sac? So people
It's just gonna
understand.
say no parking. It's not gonna say about any side of the street. No parking in cul-de-sacs, period.
It's just gonna say no parking.
Yes.
Okay. 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 And
Yeah,
then,
we'll take a look.
no, I'm just trying to understand what the goal is. So
Yeah,
it's
we'll
not
get-
gonna say no,
we'll get it signed properly.
it's not gonna say no parking this side of the street. It's gonna say no parking.
Yeah.
No side of the street.
There is no parking.
Maybe the hydrant side of the street.
Can't even spell cul-de-sac.
Park on the inside of the cul-de-sac.
Was it? Oh, okay. Again, just look for clarification. Does anyone have any miscellaneous items? Nope. All right, with no further items on the agenda, we will now adjourn the meeting at 7:28, and we will begin the council meeting in 2 minutes.